interesting transfer portal story that feeds into the playoff that I think is something that coaches, players are going to have to figure out, because I don't think the schools and the NCAA are going to be able to figure it out. I don't think there's a solution that is readily available for them. And I think coaches and players are just going to have to figure out how they're going to handle this stuff. So Beau Pribula, the backup quarterback for Penn State, is entering the transfer portal. He posted a note on Instagram on Sunday night thanking the Penn State community for everything and saying this was an incredibly difficult decision, but he's leaving now. Like, he is not playing for Penn State against SMU, which is very interesting because it's not like Beau Pribula was a backup who never played. He had a role. They would bring him in several plays a game. The Wisconsin game, he played the entire second half, led them to a win.
Mm-hmm.
Ari, this is an odd situation, and made more odd by the fact that SMU, which is Penn State's opponent in the first round on Saturday, has the same situation with their backup quarterback, Preston Stone, their former starter, in the portal. But Preston Stone is playing. Like, if Kevin Jennings goes down, Preston Stone goes in the game.
Yeah, this situation gave me PTSD, Andy, because I made one of the biggest mistakes of my career at this time last year around a situation that was like this. And if you go back and remember, Texas's quarterback Malik Murphy entered the portal around the same time before the playoff. Now, that wasn't a 12-teamer, but it was a 4-teamer. And I thought when he went in the portal that he was done and not playing for Texas. And that was which triggered me to form opinions about Steve Sarkisian's philosophy on this, because there are coaches out there, and I believe James Franklin is one of them, that is, if you're in the portal, you're not on the team, right? Like, isn't that like a thing that coaches have said?
Which I felt like was a perfectly reasonable way to handle it in the past. But that was a situation where you might be playing a bowl game that wasn't for anything. Like, now it's a different situation because you need that depth. Like, it helps your team and it hurts your team if that person leaves. And
so for the time being, last year, Andy, I thought that Malik Murphy wasn't going to play with Texas because of that policy. And I thought it was stupid because Malik Murphy stepped in for an injured Quinn Ewers for multiple games last year, helped Texas get to the playoff, and was an important piece to Texas's team because, as you know, Quinn Ewers has a propensity to get injured. Right. And I was like, Texas is really going to go into the 14 playoff without their backup quarterback because of the transfer portal and a stupid Steve Sarkisian thought that if you're in the portal. And then it turned out that Steve Sarkisian came out and said, Malik Murphy's an integral part of our team. He means a lot to me. He's a perfect, tremendous young man. We want him a part of the run, and he played. So, like, I was wrong for thinking that like Steve Sarkisian like shot himself in the foot, because he didn't.
Well, and he evolved his thinking on it because he had to.
Because you have to. Yeah. Because here's the deal. In the spring, when a person leaves in the portal, you don't need them. But like, I think you could make a reasonable case that Penn State needs Beau Pribula during this run. If Drew Aller were to get hurt, or if they want to have an extra package, although Tyler Warren is somebody that they've also used in the Wildcat, for lack of a better term, take direct snap, throw, whatever. You know, he's done a lot of stuff. You want your backup quarterback that you've gone to multiple times this year on your team, and it's not just 2 games now. It's 4, potentially.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the reason for him leaving before the run is, but it gets very muddy because you have to acknowledge that in the transfer portal world, and even just college football in general and high school football recruiting, quarterback dominoes are important. If a spot opens and somebody takes that spot, then that opens another spot. You want to be available to get your rightful or preferred landing spot. That said, you can still do it while playing. So I don't understand what's going on here. So
I want to hear James Franklin talk about this, because when I saw it initially, I had started to form a take, and I'm like, I think I need to be careful on this one
a year ago,
because
yeah,
because I don't want to assign blame before we know exactly what happened. Because if James Franklin said, if you're in the portal, you're not on the team, that's a different story. If James Franklin said, we'll support you any way we can, please keep playing. And then Beau Pribula said, no, I'm not going to. That's a different story entirely as well. As you pointed out about the dominoes, there are more quarterback spots open now than there will be. Like, we think Penn State's going to be favored in this game. If they win this game, they'll be favored in the next one. So we're talking about a long time. They have the 3.5 more weeks. That's a lot of spots that'll get filled. That said, pointing out again, the backup quarterback on the other team in this game, Preston Stone, is in the same boat, and he's playing. So you take from that what you will. And maybe the Preston Stone already knows where he's going. That may have already been decided. But it's a very interesting situation because I want to know who said what when and how the decision was made before I render a judgment on this thing, because I don't want to come off blazing on Pribula or on James Franklin if I don't know exactly where they stood on this thing.
Yeah, and it's a very easy thing to go, well, Beau Pribula is a terrible teammate, but it's like, the thing that is frustrating about situations like this is that there is a solution in the middle, which is Beau Pribula goes into the portal,
right,
does what he needs to do, finds his team, does not remove himself from the thick of the quarterback domino derby, and still plays. So like it's not like a choose your adventure situation. There is a route in an avenue.
There's a grown up way to handle this, which we're watching SMU do it. We're watching Arizona State do it right now. Kenny Dillingham is like quote tweeting his players' portal announcement saying, "We love this guy. He's a great teammate. You're going to love him on your team, but also he's going to stay with us through the play." Like, you can do that. And I kind of turned on that last year when we had Eli Drinkwitz on the show before the Cotton Bowl. And he was explaining why, instead of just saying, if you're in the portal and you're not on the team, he said, no, you're absolutely still on the team. You helped us get here. You make sure it's not a distraction, and we'll support you any way we can, but we want you to be with us through the end of the season. And I think that's a really grown-up way of handling it. And if you're in the playoff, it's absolutely the way you should handle it because you need the depth.
Yeah. And James Franklin, I should add, if it were, hey, if you're in the portal, you're not on the team, is only hurting his own chances. So, like, I think that would be a poor coaching move.
Let's see what he says about that, because
it can't be that, because why would a coach make his team worse on purpose?
Right. Now, let's also, since we're talking about dominoes falling, let's talk about what this also probably means if Beau Pribula is entering the transfer portal. It probably means the starting job at Penn State is not open next year. I don't think that means they're taking a portal quarterback. That seems a strong indication that Drew Aller comes back next year.
Yeah. Which is nuts, because there was a time where it seemed like he might be a first rounder this year, right?
Oh, like, I think that time is right now. I think the way he played in the Oregon game
now.
I mean, think about this. You look at all the quarterbacks who are going to be in the draft next year. They're going to be
right.
There's a lot of it's not a deep draft at all.
I said a weak draft.
Yeah, it's definitely a weak draft. And there's several quarterback needy teams. There's multiple teams that are probably going to want to take a first round QB. Who do you trust as a QB in the first round? Maybe Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Carson Beck. I'm not taking either of those guys in the first round.
Yeah. And quarterbacks will go in the first round because they have to take quarterbacks in the first round, right? Has there ever been an NFL draft where they're like, we don't like anybody, we're just going to wait, and then no quarterbacks got taken in the first round at all?
There's been some where they went a while without taking one, but not in this era. This era, they're going to take quarterbacks. Like you saw it with Penix going in the top 10 last year to not even start. They're going to take quarterbacks if they feel like they want one. So Aller, but here's the thing,
it also brings up a secondary discussion, which I don't know if we're going to get into, but there have been rumors of what's going to happen with Quinn Ewers this year too. Of is he ready to go?
We can talk about that when we get to the Texas Clemson game.
Okay,
but Aller, before we pick this Penn State SMU game, which is now suddenly way more interesting, Aller, imagine him playing the way he did against Oregon for an entire season. That's maybe the first guy off the board, right?
Yes. Because he was very and like he's doing it too without any like help from like a skill position standpoint. They've got
other than Tyler Warren, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm saying like there's no Cam Coleman on the outside. There's no Ryan Williams. There's no Jeremiah Smith. Like
no,
he was super mobile. You know what it kind of reminded me of a little bit? And I don't know if this is going to sound insane to you, but like for a quarterback, like because Drew Aller didn't run much this year, right?
Right.
You know when CJ Stroud played against Georgia in 2022, and it was just kind of like the best quarterback performance that Ohio State had seen in years. And it was like, where the hell did that come from? And then that game actually like turned into be like the reason and the thing that people point to of like, you should have seen it right there of why he's really good in the NFL. Like, I'm wondering if that, and I'm not saying styles and everything, but like, I wonder if Drew Aller's performance against Oregon was that like, hey guys, look a little closer at this because this tape here shows what he could be.
Yeah.
But then that to me wouldn't signal going back.
But he may want to put a whole year of that on tape.
But you don't need a whole year of that on tape.
I know, but listen, he may like it. This is a different era, Ari.
No, I know. I mean, he's getting paid out there too. So I mean, I'm not saying that it's dumb. I'm just saying, like, if that is what he plays like in the first round, I don't know that he has much to gain going back from a draft perspective, particularly in a year where there isn't a ton of competition at the position. Like, I mean, he put himself into a top. If Drew Aller plays really well for the next 2 or 3 games, he is a top 10 pick, right?
This is true. This episode of Andy and Ari On3 is sponsored by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist, and switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. You visit BetterHelp.com/Andy and Ari to get 10% off your first month. And I'm telling you right now, if you feel like you need to talk to somebody about anything, give it a try. It helps. I've done it before. Shout out Dr. Matt. My guy actually has a sports psychology background, and it really helped because he kind of speaks the same language I do based on, the people I talk to in my job. And it allows me to kind of unload some stuff and figure out how to deal with some things that happened a long time ago. Like I'll give you a prime example. Saturday was the 18th anniversary of my mom's passing. I have not handled that well through the years. Talking to somebody definitely helped me handle it better. So if you've got something like that that's weighing you down, give BetterHelp a try. BetterHelp.com/Andy and Ari, 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/Andy and Ari.
So
all right,
I don't know what that means.
Let's talk about his next game.
Okay.
Let's talk about his next game. Penn State SMU. Penn State is an 8.5-point favorite. This is a really fascinating game, Ari, because I think I go back to the ACC championship game. What SMU did early on in that game, where they dug themselves a massive hole. They fumble early. Clemson cashes it in for a TD. They had trouble stopping Clemson early. They end up coming back, and they end up losing on a walk-off field goal. If you dig a hole like that against Penn State, Ari, I think you lose. I think Penn State it makes it like the Illinois game, essentially. Like they'll just beat you 24-7 if you do that.
Yeah. Well, also, like there's a lot here to unpack. One is, as you guys know, I'm a very big proponent of the Penn State atmosphere, and it's going to be like 12 degrees out there. Like SMU is walking into, like, there's nothing like that in the ACC, right? Like, am I forgetting any? Is there a
Clemson's
single
the
environment?
closest thing, but they didn't play in it.
Yeah. So they're walking into, because like in the SEC, it's like, oh, wow, it's going to be loud. And it's like, yeah, well, it's loud every week.
Yeah, Clemson and Virginia Tech, but they didn't play in either place this year.
And like, I always get like, oh yeah, okay, the crowd's loud, whatever. Like, but like, this is a different type of loud for SMU. Especially considering the fact that they're only 1 year into a power league to begin with, and that league isn't really known for. I mean, Virginia Tech too, but isn't really known for imposing crowds, and the temperature and all that too. And it gets a little chilly here in Dallas, but nothing like that. But also too, it's like, did SMU work out the yips?
That's the thing, because if they come in playing the way they did in the second half of that ACC championship game, this is going to be a really competitive game. This is going to be a lot of fun. They cannot start slow like they did in the ACC championship game, because Penn State is one of those teams that can just sit on you, and you got to make Penn State work. And you saw Oregon make Penn State work, and you saw Ohio State make Penn State work. And I think if you do that, you have a good chance of winning this game.
Yeah. 8.5 is a lot of points, and it just kind of depends on which way you think this is headed. And what I saw from Penn State, I think I'm liking this side of it. What I saw against Oregon was a different gear. And if they can build off of that and play that way at home, I do like their odds of winning by 10. And that doesn't mean that SMU isn't competitive, but this could also be a blowout, right? I don't know
what. Okay, and I'm not. Again, we're not wishing injury on anybody, but we just spent 10 minutes talking about this, and we're kind of remiss if we don't. What if something happens to Drew Aller? What do you do if you're Penn State?
I don't know. I mean, what, are you going to watch 3/4 of Tyler Warren playing quarterback? Is that what it is?
No, that's not what it's going to be. I mean, they're going to go to the freshman, but it's a very strange situation. And that would change the math on this considerably. If Pribula is there, you're not even worried about it. You kind of know what the offense is going to look like. And it's different. It's a different offense, but is Ethan Grunkmeyer coming in? I think that's who comes in, right?
Yeah, and he was a pretty highly rated recruit out of Ohio. Kind of like it was a little bit of the same type of path as Drew Aller to get to Penn State, but I don't know. Is that what you want to be doing? It's very fascinating.
Welcome to the show, kid. Golly.
Yeah. This Pribula situation is just fascinating to me. I don't know, man.
It is because they were one of the ones. Now SMU is one of the other ones that, look, if something happens, you got a backup quarterback who can just hop in and you're good to go. SMU, and that's the thing. If something happens to Kevin Jennings in this game, we've seen Preston Stone start 16 games for SMU. He's 13-3 as a starter. We know what he can do.
And there's just something about this game, Andy, too. And not just, in college football, where your weaknesses, or if you roll the dice on something, that it has a funny way of popping up on you. Doesn't it always seem it kind of works out that way? Of okay, we're going into a game where, this is a deficiency, and then all of a sudden here we are, having to face that head on national television with the whole country watching that. That happens a lot in college football. Now, again, nothing but hope and well wishes for Drew Aller to remain healthy and to continue on in his campaign the way that we all want.
If Drew Aller looks like he did against Oregon, Penn State's winning and covering here. Let's be real here.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's there's some risk here involved here that isn't necessarily just who do you think is better, but I also think when we get to the other games, what should happen or what could happen just kind of depends on circumstances of a few things, and it's kind of hard to predict what the circumstance is going to be when the game starts. But my gut feeling here is that Penn State controls this football game and wins by 10 at home.
I think so too. I think as long as Aller's healthy, that they're going to be able to cover this spread. That defense is pretty hellacious. You've got Abdul Carter coming after the quarterback, and they are going to punish mistakes. So SMU has to be almost perfect here. And we saw in the ACC championship game where the moment looked a little too big for them. Now, maybe they've gotten over that. And if I'm Rhett Lashley, I am saying to this team, you've already experienced that. You belong here. Don't worry about it. Go out there, play fast and loose. Like, let's not be tight going into this game, because if they are tight, they're going to lose. They cannot start the way they started against Clemson, because this team's too good for that. So
the temperature in State College on Saturday is a high of 25 and a low of 10 degrees with winds of 10 to 15 miles an hour.
Yeah, the team that can control the game on the ground. Like this, that sounds like a Tyler Warren day to me. That sounds like you get the ball to Tyler Warren however you can.
B1G, Andy. B1G.
Can you imagine trying to tackle Tyler Warren in the cold? Like, tackling him in perfect conditions sounds awful to me, but tackling him in the cold sounds terrible. Oh, yeah, give me Penn State to cover.